Space, the final frontier. Join us for a bold conversation. Our prime directive? To recap our favorite Star Trek shows, both new and old. To engage in debate about all things Trek. Prepare to energize with phasers set to stun.
Welcome back to a new episode of Phasers Set to Stun, where we continue to show our love for everything Star Trek in this ongoing series from a Film by Podcast, which focuses on every system of the expanding Star Trek universe by covering television, movies, animation, directors, merchandise, and much, much more. Plotting your course on this voyage of the USS Enterprise is your core Trek crew. I'm Wayne Whited.
I'm David Burns.
And I'm Scott Hoffman.
And today we must talk about Season 3, Episode 10, the season finale of Star Trek Strange New Worlds, titled New Life and New Civilizations. Written by Dana Horgan and Davey Perez, and directed by Maja Bervillo. So at this point forward, it's red alert, folks. There are spoilers ahead. If you haven't seen this episode yet, you really need to stop and beam yourself to the nearest view screen and catch it on Paramount Plus. Then come back and rejoin us for this discussion. So Scott, why don't you give us the short summary for the episode?
I'll give it a shot. There's a lot of winding through this one. A celebration of Captain Batel's promotion is cut short when the Enterprise hears from Dr. Corby, who is visiting Skygowan, a distant civilization that worships the evil Vesda as gods. They also learn that the Vesda, formerly trapped in the transporter buffer, has somehow appeared right in front of Dr. Corby. Enterprise makes its way to Corby on Skygowan to investigate, and Vesda, in the form of Ensign Gamble, hatches a plot to set the other Vesda free, to possess everyone on Skygowan as vessels and spread chaos throughout the universe. Meanwhile, Batel comes to the realization that her destiny is to become the warden that keeps the Vesda imprisoned. Batel battles Gamble in the Vesda prison, gets a glimpse of a life what might have been with Pike and the family they would build, and just before Batel surrenders to her fate, losing her humanity forever, she has a brief moment to say goodbye to Captain Pike. It's a strange end to the season, but one that's worth discussing for sure.
All right, so this episode has kind of split the fandom down right in the center, like a lot of the episodes, but this one seemed to be more than most. Let's find out how we liked it. What do you guys think?
I like the musical episode from Season 2 better, if that tells you anything.
Oh, ouch.
This felt like a series finale, not a season finale.
It was designed as that, actually.
I did not like it at all. This episode had elements of it trying to be the inner light from the Next Generation. Mm-hmm. It felt like we were going into the nexus of Star Trek Generations at times. Mm-hmm. Yep. And I'm sorry, I'm not a fan of this finale. I thought it was flat. I felt we were let down. This season, we'll get talk about season a little bit later, but it just felt like we had a lot of really good episodes in this season. Yeah. And I felt something about 3/4 of the way through the season that I'm like, we're really not building up to anything very much. And I knew they were going to give us a resolution to Batel, but even Patel's resolution, I felt like, really? That's what we're going to do with her? Okay, sure, fine, let's move on. I'm glad the finale's done, and I can't wait to see Season 4, but man, not a fan of this episode.
Yeah, I mean, I got to admit I'm feeling the same way. I'm disappointed because we've been talking about, not that they had to pursue any of the theories that we came up with, but there's a lot of directions that we thought this could go. And this is certainly not one that I expected. It felt like at about 20 minutes in, when there was talk about like destiny and all this other kind of stuff, it was really, really feeling odd. There are aspects of certain other series in the Star Trek franchise that go in this direction, and it always feels a little weird because when they get into like higher level mysticism and things like this, it just seems off. The tone just seems off, especially considering where they seem to be going the entire season. it seemed like they were way too willing to accept this whole idea that Batel is destined to become the beholder, and thoughts of like, well, I'm going to be a vessel for good that's fighting against the definition of evil. When they get that kind of big and that kind of broad, it just feels like biting off more than they can chew. I liked the Chef Pike kind of semi-future that we got, but it didn't have the same kind of surprise element that things like Inner Light had. It didn't really make you think. The whole time you knew that it was like, all right, this is a dream sequence. The knock at the door is obviously him being beckoned into the present day real world, whatever. So you knew that it wasn't real. You knew that it was going away. There were aspects of it that were well written, but then ultimately kind of the resolution just felt weird.
Yeah, I'm conflicted with this episode too, more so than what I was earlier this season with another episode. First let me say that this just isn't the season finale I thought we were going to get. I don't know what exactly I was expecting, but it wasn't this. I know that this was not on my radar. It's just not how I thought Patel's story would play out. I think that's the biggest problem I have with it. I just didn't think that was the direction it was going, or for that matter, with Ensign Gamble and the Vesda. I didn't think that's the way that story was, and I'm not extremely happy with what we got. I don't think it. I mean, it's not a bad episode in my opinion, but it's definitely not the best. It's definitely not even in the top 5 or 6 of the season. I applaud the producers for trying. For giving us a season finale that delivers something different, because the last 2 season finales used legacy characters or alien races or something. So, I don't know. The writers had come out and said that they had written this as a series finale, and which that explains why it didn't have a cliffhanger. But I'm really glad that didn't happen, because as a season finale, I'll accept it. But if this was a series finale, I would have been completely baffled and probably a little bit angry. From the whole thing. I don't know. I guess when we first saw the Vesta back in Through the Lens of Time, I had high hopes that the series was creating a new baddie, a really interesting baddie for Strange New Worlds. And I think I even mentioned that, it felt like an ongoing story that would carry on maybe for the next couple of seasons. But this feels like an end to that story. And we still know very little about that race and what they can do. It seems like just a horrible missed opportunity for a great, what could have been a great storyline that would have been original, interesting. I hope we see them again, but I hope they didn't just throw them away on this episode. But I fear they may have. And speaking of throwing away, what was the point of even having Ensign Gamble there? It just felt wrong. I mean, he comes in and then he's defeated almost immediately. It just seemed hardly worth even bringing him back. I'm with you guys. I think over the last 2 episodes that we've reviewed, I think this is the only episode that we both, or all 3 of us, kind of agree with. It just didn't work.
It just felt like a lot of wasted potential. Like when you mentioned, why did Gamble come back? Why was Mbenga in the portal? Because it seemed like we had, an interesting setup with his backstory, an interesting kind of connection there. He had a brave moment, certainly, when he was ready to just end his own life to stop Gamble in his tracks. But then it just seems like he's kind of cast to the side. When the Vesda is able to, attack the Beholder, it seems to have to, spend a lot of time and a lot of build-up doing it, when it seems like it would want to just, be a little bit more persistent at chipping away at it. And it seems like they've built up such an interesting character with Batel to basically have her stand as like this statue for the rest of time. It seems like a wasted potential. I would have liked to have seen Batel be, a character that's related, but knowing that she's got the promotion, have some tension about her being distant and Pike being distant and having to face that future together. It's interesting we got to see it, but it's kind of wasted potential for that kind of tension to go away. If it was written as a series finale, it just seems like maybe they should have taken the time to say, like, nope, we're locked in for 2 more seasons. Let's go ahead and dig in and make this something different.
Yeah, and David, you were right too about it definitely was not I like what they were doing with Pike, and I understand what they were doing, but it was so much like the Inner Light, and I'm sorry, the Inner Light is 10 times better.
Oh yeah,
you know, I also got, I also thought about Star Trek Generations too, which even that little bit there was done better. Just I like I said, I understand what they're doing, but I just, with everything that happened around it, I just can't say that one thing redeemed the episode.
I think when we first realized what was going on, that they were back at his house and stuff like that, I was like, oh, look, we're in the Nexus. That was my immediately thought. Yeah. We're in the Nexus. I'm like, okay, cool. Of course it wasn't. And when it drug on, you realize what was going on. But I mean, I agree, Scott, that this villain was horrible. I'm sorry. And this is no put down to Gamble in the actor. I felt like this villain I would equal to the Tar villain that killed Tasha Yar. Because it is a horrible villain in this film. In this episode. And another thing, I think when I look back now at this season, I should have seen the warning signs this was coming, because all the bottle episodes we had in this season, we really didn't have a overall arcing season going on here, story in this season, with the exception of Patel. We didn't. We had a lot of bottle episodes. And with that happening, this is what we get for the finale. And we should have seen it coming, to be honest with you.
Did either one of us, did any of us actually think this is the direction Patel was going?
No.
Not
at all. Not at all. Now, maybe, just maybe, if they had given us a 2-parter for this and gave a little bit more room, maybe it might have worked.
Yeah.
But I still don't think it would have, with where they went with Patel and the villain they gave us. You know, I always try to find good stuff in episodes, and there are some good things in this episode. I absolutely love the Spock and Kirk stuff when he finally tells him, "Call me Jim." Right. I love that, and I felt it deep down in my bones. Yeah, I'm using that pun, but I felt it. You know, that relationship is going further. But as an episode, man, so let down.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there are some good bits about it. I do like, even though it's a copy of the Inner Light, I do like what they did and their idea of doing it. And I thought the actors were fantastic, especially Anson Mount. He did a phenomenal job in this episode, because his character was going through a lot, but it's just, there's just not enough there to redeem the whole thing. And I, David, you mentioning that, maybe, I mean, if they made this a 2-parter, to be continued, I don't know, maybe they could have come up with something else that could have made more sense. I don't know. I don't know. Like I said, I'm conflicted with this episode.
It definitely pales in comparison to the finale we got last year. With the last season, I should say, without question.
Yeah.
And it's just, man, I don't know what they were thinking in this, that this was the way to go. I don't know. I'm so confused. I really am.
Well, both finales we've got up to this point give us a lot to talk about, think about, and anticipate. In this one, I'm just anticipating the continuation of the series, and knowing that I've got faith in the creative team behind it, that they're going to take it into a better direction. But it's tough when you've got you're trying to advocate for a show that that is doing really, really well, to have something that kind of throws us off. I feel like what I was hoping for, and I don't need to see Batel turn into a Gorn,
right?
But it did seem like there might have been a little bit more depth there, especially because everything we've been seeing, everything that's been teased, points to the Gorn. Nothing necessarily points to this whole Beholder thing. So it seems like it could have gone that way. It seems like the Vesda could have been drawn out into kind of like the puppet masters behind the scenes that have been orchestrating a bunch of little things that are going wrong. I don't know. It just surprised me, and it's like as soon as I heard them talk about destiny and I'm supposed to be the beholder and all this other kind of stuff, and she had like the stars in her eyes and things like that, there were just several little things that made me start to check out bit by bit, and then I was just kind of waiting for it to be over to see where it was going to go. I was actually hoping that at the very end there would be some kind of twist that would keep us talking and thinking about the season until we get more. But
I will say this is the first episode. When you said you checked out, this is the first episode that I checked out about halfway through it. Like I had it on, but it got to the point that it became background noise.
I was the same way, exactly the same way. I'm glad both of you brought that up. I just about halfway through, I'm like, I'm losing interest in this. I kept on watching it, and of course, I watched it again for this podcast for the notes, but it just didn't hold me like the rest of the episodes this season. The whole thing reminds me so much of the third season of Discovery, where I loved every episode. I thought it was an incredible idea. The build-up was fantastic, but the last episode of the season was such a huge letdown. So much that I almost stopped watching the entire series. I'm not going to stop watching this one because I am looking forward to next season. I love these characters.
Oh, yeah, me too.
But it's difficult to after following for 9 weeks this season to have to end here and wait another 11, 12 months for the next episode.
At least it's only 11 or 12 months, and it's not like the last
that's
two.
true.
Yeah.
That's true.
And I know they'll rebound. I know they will.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I don't blame this on the actors, the cast, because they're all phenomenal. Whatever you give them, they're going to give the 100%, 110%, and they always do. And there's so many moments in here that I laughed at Scotty when he spoke as Pelia, and Chap was like, would Peleus ever say that as a vampire? Because it sounded like he was a vampire. Yeah. So I mean, there were some funny things in this episode, and then the whole ending too. I was like, I kind of like hit it. Is this a hit it moment? And Erica was like, I like hit it. And when he basically told her, go out, go as fast as you want. But overall, yeah, no.
Yeah, that ending, the final scenes of the episode though did interest me a little bit in the fact that now they've got new charts with lots and lots of new planets to explore. I'm hoping that first of all that the scene seemed like a little tack on scene. I think they added that when they realized the series was going to go on for another 2 years. But it gives me a lot of hope for next season that we're going to see a lot of original stuff. I love the continuity ideas. I love seeing things from old Star Trek, but I also like the new ideas and I'm hoping this brings a whole bunch more.
Yeah, let's put this behind us and move on.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of tacked on, not to lead the witness, but I do want to kind of ask our resident Doctor Who mega fan your opinion about Pelia's line.
Yeah.
I thought it was funny.
Yeah.
And I'll mention that in Easter eggs too. I'll go into a little more detail, but I think it's funny. I do. I mean, I love the ideas. As a Doctor Who fan, I love those little callbacks to other series.
Yeah. I'll leave it at that.
All right. So now that we've given our thoughts and opinions on the episode, let's take a look at the characters themselves. Which character do you think shined the most this week, David?
I mean, as much as I want to give, I hated where they took her character. I'm still going with Battelle on this one. She still put her all into this, and having to go through that, she didn't have a choice of what her destiny, and yeah, I'm using air quotes here, of what it's going to become, and she needed to say goodbye to Pike. I like the whole dialogue between the two of them, having kids and all that kind of stuff, and the makeup that they did on two of them when they were both very elderly. I thought that was extremely well done.
Yeah, it was.
So I've got to go with Battelle on this one. So even though I don't like what they did with her character, I still think she shined. Scott?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I mean, knowing that it's the last time we're possibly going to see her, maybe in a cameo later, I got to give credit to Melanie Scrofano, the actress that plays Captain Battelle, I think has consistently done a great job. I think this is no different. Despite, not necessarily agreeing with the direction of the story or the dialogue, I think she did a great job. Especially in the Chef Pike sequences. It seemed like they were genuinely a married couple. I like the fact that they gave Battelle the chance to be able to give Chris that life that they never thought that they would get. And I thought it was a beautiful moment when he, walks up to his apron later and kind of holds it up and then kind of lays it down with the blank space. You see the absence there, and it pulls at your heartstrings. So I'd say Captain Battelle.
Well, I'm going to give this to Captain Pike because throughout this season, I've always felt that Pike's been kind of underused. There have been a couple episodes where he's hardly even appeared in. But, here in this episode, he really does shine out, in my opinion. Despite the script that they're working with, Anson Mount does give an incredible performance and could be, in my opinion, too, one of his best performances of the season. The episode did put Pike in some really emotional situations. He faced a lot of hard questions, especially, the type of life that he would lead or never lead, I guess, due to his future accident. But, his time, that scene, the vision scene with Battelle, is definitely some of the episode's strongest scenes. And he just does an incredible job performing this. So I have to give it to Pike and Anson Mount for his performance.
Yep.
Now, if you have any choice to be any character that appeared in this episode, do we want to be any character that appeared in this episode? But all right, let's pick one. Which one would you like to be and why? Scott, you begin this one.
I'd go with Chef Pike, because despite the heartbreak of not being able to live that life, he still got to experience it. He still got to share that time with Battelle. I wasn't necessarily clear on whether they both were kind of living an entire lifetime in a condensed space of time. But if he did, he was living the life that he always wanted. It seemed like there was enough things where it didn't feel like for the man who has everything, where everything seemed a little too idyllic or a little too good.
So I am going to go with Corby. 2 reasons. Reason number 1 is he is basically Space Indiana Jones. And number 2, he gets to lock lips with Chapel. So
just get right to it.
I'm going to get right to it. That's right. So, I mean, he had to suffer a little bit, but yeah, definitely Corby.
I'm going to choose Captain Pike because this episode is a really important point in his life. He's been given an incredible gift from Battelle, the memories of a happier, longer life, which is something that he didn't have before. He knew how his life was going to end, as very soon with the accident, and that he'd end up in that hover chair, blinking, as a 1 light for no and 2 for yes, for the rest of his life. And that's got to be a really depressing weight on your head, knowing that this is where it's going to go. I'm just kind of counting the days down until that happens. But now he's been able to give he has another idea, an alternate life, that this life that he always wanted in his head. So now that everything that happens afterwards is just extra now, and that even when he's in the chair, he can look back and remember this life that he had with Battelle. And I think that's wonderful. I think that's probably the good thing that came out of this episode is now Pike has a little bit different outlook of his ending.
Yeah, it's a good call.
Yeah, it is.
All right, now we're going to dive deep into the episode and see if we can pull out any Easter eggs. And there wasn't too many this week, but did either one of you find anything?
I just got the him calling Jim for the first time, telling him to call Jim. That's about all I caught. Scott?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing was what I mentioned before about Pelia's mentioning a time-traveling doctor. Although what I thought was kind of interesting is, was she trying to kind of like stop herself from saying time traveling and then say traveling doctor instead?
Oh, I got the impression that she started saying it and realized, ooh, maybe she shouldn't tell anybody about him. That's the impression I got, which makes me beginning to think that, maybe Star Trek and Doctor Who is in the same universe now. Maybe is that what they're leading to after this, and then the appearance of the TARDIS in the Slot Who Ate Its Tail. I'm really interested in seeing, where they want to go with this. BBC, if you're listening, putting Carol Kane in the next season of Doctor Who wouldn't be too bad. I wouldn't mind that. Can we see that a little bit?
That'd be interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I found just a couple, and I really had to pull for a few of these. But Uhura's prank of telling Scotty to come in his formal dress is actually a callback from the second episode of the season, titled "Children of the Comet," which where Ortegas had tricked Uhura into dressing up for Captain Pike's dinner party. That episode was also directed by the same person that did this episode. There were a few mentions. There was a mention of the planet Rigel from the original series pilot The Cage. And there were a few mentions of Pike's fate from the Menagerie. There was also a brief call to the Daystrom Institute, which appeared in everything from Star Trek The Next Generation to Star Trek Picard. And I also know, actually, this is a little bit of what I think it's a little bit of a blooper. This is something that I don't think they caught. But in Pike's vision, the character of Elijah April, the boy who was marrying their daughter, he's wearing a Science Division version of the Starfleet cadet uniform. But by the time the scene should be taking place, he actually should be wearing the cadet uniforms that we see in Star Trek 2 and 3. The red maroon jumpsuits. Yeah, that's whoops.
Oops.
All right, let's conclude with a look back at the season as a whole. Which episode was your favorite? Which ones do you think just didn't hit right? Any closing thoughts of the season that you'd like to share? David, Scott?
So, for me, my favorite episode has to be Shuttle to Kenfori. Seeing zombies in Star Trek was new. But getting to see M'Benga getting his story wrapped up, basically, kind of, because we talked about that, Wayne, you and I, what we expected to see this season. So I felt that was a good move, and it happened pretty quick into the season. Not just that, but Babs gave an absolute stellar performance in that episode. And I really love his character, and I love the way they keep going with it. And every time he's on screen, I'm excited to see it and to see what he's going to do, because he's they're all incredible actors, but for some reason Babs just does such a wonderful job in that role, and I just love to see it. But in the fact that it's a nod to the actor Ken Foree as well, is a big thing for me. I know we've got Scarefest coming up in Lexington, and Ken Foree's going to be there.
That's right.
I'm going to go up and talk to him and ask him how he feels that he had a Star Trek episode in his honor.
A planet named after him.
Yes, a planet named after him, to see how he reacts to that. But that's my favorite episode. As for the season itself, I kind of talked a little bit earlier in this episode that I felt like they had too many bottle episodes in this season. And it's hard to say because I love bottle episodes. I love what they can do with them. And we had a lot of good episodes here. I remember us saying week after week, man, I don't know. This feels like this is my favorite episode. This feels like this is my favorite episode. And they had a lot of good stuff throughout it. I just felt like, and it did kind of go back to the original Star Trek where you get, each episode is, inside itself. It doesn't have that story arc that goes over the entire season. And even the Next Generation did that, I think Deep Space Nine was the first one that finally did the story arc, throughout the season. So I felt like this was kind of a callback to that older stuff. But when you have so much going on and that the Patel stuff, that's kind of a story arc you got going on, but I think they kind of like let it out, then it disappeared. Then they talk a little bit about it, and then they let it disappear. It wasn't like what we got with the Gorn and stuff like that in previous season. So I felt like with all the bottle episodes, and again, it should have been our warning sign that the finale was going to be like this. I felt let down by that, but as a season, I thought we had some pretty good, strong episodes this season. So I have to say it was a successful season with the exception of the finale.
Scott?
Yeah, I agree with that last statement. There were so many times when we said, I don't know, this might be my favorite episode, which is a mark of a good season. It is interesting kind of looking back at how many bottle episodes there were, but it also feels like any one of these, with the exception of the season premiere, any one of these could be something you use to kind of introduce somebody to the season or show it to somebody to say, like, this is the potential that Star Trek still has. Yep. For me, I'll be interested to hear your thoughts on this, but to me, my favorite was the one that I didn't get a chance to talk with you two about, which is 4.5 Vulcans.
That's a good one.
It was a lot of fun. I didn't understand the title until I saw the episode, and then I was like, it's so obvious. And it's such a jab at Spock. You can hear him like, fine, yeah, 4.5 Vulcans, whatever. That one to me just kind of, there were some dramatic elements. Obviously, you knew it was kind of a funnier episode, so it wasn't going to have major consequences, but it still had interesting insights into each of the characters. It still had some great impact. And Patton Oswalt's character was just hilarious. I just thought that was fantastic. So, Wayne, what about you?
I really enjoyed the season. While I don't think it was quite as strong as last season, there were a lot of high points in it. Like you said, Shuttle to Kafori, and another one, Through the Lens of Time, is another one that was really good. A lot of good character building this season. I feel like the actors and the writers are now comfortable with their characters. Not just their characters, but the cast altogether feel much more comfortable, so they can now expand rather than not just explore but expand their characters. But I think my favorite episode ended up being Tyrannium, the last episode, because I just felt it. We finally got that great Ortegas episode that we'd always been wanting. Plus, it was a really strong episode, well acted, directed. The effects were fantastic. I loved it. It was an episode that fit perfectly into the Star Trek lore, but didn't rely heavily on continuity, and I think just stood out for me from above all the others.
That's a good choice. I wrestled with choosing Terrarium myself, but then I was like,
I was the same way. I wrestled with 4.5 Vulcans.
Which is that's a sign of a good season, right? It's hard to make a choice.
It is, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I'm a sucker for horror, so that's why I went with the zombies.
Oh yeah,
because that was a really good episode.
Yeah, you don't get to see that in Star Trek too much. So I thought that was a unique way for them to go. But yeah, I mean, I struggled. The 4.5 Vulcans was absolutely hysterical. And Scott, we even mentioned in it, we wish you were there to talk to us about it, because it was so much fun. It really was.
We did. We had a lot of fun.
Doug was amazing in that episode. Doug, yes.
I think it's interesting, like the range of choices that we have here. Yeah. It shows the range of Star Trek and the potential for it to move forward. There's definitely some genre pushing. It's not necessarily what you might expect from conventional sci-fi or what you might expect from Star Trek. And I think they're handling that really well. They're going in the good directions. They don't always.
And I love
have a
that.
hit.
I love that they're pushing the boundaries of Star Trek. We're not just getting another cookie cutter Star Trek series. Like we had gotten. We need that. This is pushing everything. This is trying things new, and I really commend them for doing that. And it makes Strange New Worlds a more dramatic and a more fun and more enjoyable series to watch. So I hope they continue on. I know they are, because next season we got the puppet episode, and I'm really, really curious to see what they're going to do with that.
Absolutely. So do you guys think we'll see an OG character next season introduced?
I do.
I would think so. Yeah.
So
I feel like they're going to walk us toward it.
Do you think it's going to be Sulu, or do you think it's going to be Bones McCoy?
I think it'll be Bones. I think it's time to introduce him, because we got Mbenga's storyline, which they really haven't. We have no idea what the heck happens to him. And they're going to explore. They have to explore this, especially if they're leading towards this Star Trek Year One series that they're talking about. Everybody's talking about. So I do think Bones is going to be next season's character, and I think they're going to start the beginning of that story.
Now that they lost Gamble, they need help. So maybe that is how they get McCoy.
So here's another interesting twist to think about. Jim is still on the Farragut.
Yeah.
And we don't know who the medical chief of staff there is.
No.
So is it possible that Bones could be on the Farragut with Jim?
But did he come from the Farragut, though?
We don't know. We don't know.
That's true. We don't know.
He could have. I mean, that's yeah. Who knows? I never even thought of that.
That's a good call too. Wow.
It just
For all
feels
we
like
know, yeah, Kirk already knows Bones.
right. And it what I would like them to do, and I trust that they'll do so, is that they'll leave room for continuing to have Chapel and Mbenga. I would love to see them see it all the way through.
Oh,
Even though I know that
yeah.
Bones is destined to be there, I don't want them to say like, well, there's too many people in medical, which I would argue, no. There's never enough people in medical. But, interesting with how Bones has that kind of, I would say, kind of a contentious personality.
Mm-hmm.
And the conflict that might happen with Spock, that I wouldn't want him set up in such a way that it's just like, God, that Bones guy.
Right.
Well, I don't see them bringing any of the new other characters on as regulars, not like what they did with Scotty, because they've already got a full house right now. And in order for them, in my opinion, for them to bring any of the other character, McCoy or Sulu in full time, they'd have to get rid of one of the other ones. Now, I don't know, maybe that's the way they're leading for, but I really do think if it is Bones, and I think it is going to be for next season, because I think they'll save Sulu for if not season 5, for this new series that they're talking about. But I don't think he'll be a regular. I think he'll be like Kirk, and that may pop up once or twice, and that's it.
Makes sense.
I feel like we'll see Ortegas continue to gradually grow and kind of ascend to a point where she almost kind of, outgrows Enterprise, or sees the possibility to go on to other things, maybe even get into a command position on another ship, like the direction that we saw Sulu go, right? And leave an open chair for him, but not an empty chair.
Right. And that's it for this season of Star Trek Strange New Worlds, as well as this week's episode of Phaser Set to Stun. We'd like to open a channel to our listeners and hear just what you thought about the most recent episode and this season in general. You can email us at afilmbypodcast@gmail.com. Find us online at afilmbypodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and X. And if you're looking for more content or swag, you can join our Patreon and find out what exclusive gems are hidden within. A big thank you once again to my fellow Trekkers David and Scott for joining me and the listeners over the last 9 weeks reviewing this season.
Yep. Thanks. Can't wait to dig into the next season.
Yeah. So guys, before we let the listeners go, what are we doing next?
We're sad to see Strange New Worlds end for the year, but we have 2 more seasons yet to come, starting with season 4 sometime in 2026. And of course, there will be more Phaser Set to Stun coming your way to fill the gap. In a few weeks, we begin our look back at another Trek series, where we will bring you our top 10 episodes of Star Trek Deep Space Nine, season by season, a new Starter Treks, with a look at each season of the 1993 to 99 series, giving you the lowdown on which episodes you should watch and which ones you can avoid, plus our usual thoughts and opinions, along with some fun trivia and behind-the-scenes info. What do you guys think about that?
I'm very excited to start digging into Deep Space Nine. I really
Can't wait.
Yeah, we're both fans of that series, and I can't wait to do a rewatch and delve back into this, because it was a great series when it aired.
Absolutely.
Well, we look forward to returning to the 24th century and to you, our listeners, on the next episode of Phasers Set to Stun.
Man, I forgot how many seasons and episodes there are in Deep Space Nine. Ooh,
There's 7 seasons, a lot of episodes.
That's thick.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
I know. I was looking at the first season, trying to decide which episodes.
Well, we know episode 1 is going to be 1. Come on.
Yeah, and the season finale. That's a really
and the finale.
episode,
so right there's 2. We just got to come up with 8 more.
I can tell you which one's going to be my least favorite. But